Hello, guys. Welcome back to Jalima Files, your go-to YouTube channel for unsolved mysteries, true crime stories, conspiracy theories, and viral trending topics. We explore strange disappearances, unexplained events, hidden histories, and shocking truths that the world can't stop talking about. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and turn on the notification bell to get notified when we have a new upload. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the complex legacy, the autocratic rule, and the dramatic downfall of Muammar Gaddafi. In the heart of North Africa, one man's name was synonymous with power, controversy, and revolution. His rule lasted over 4 decades, but it ended in a brutal and public fall from grace. This is the story of Muammar Gaddafi, the man who transformed Libya from an impoverished backwater into a major player on the global stage, and the same man whose regime ultimately crumbled under the weight of rebellion, international intervention, and his own arrogance. Muammar Gaddafi was born on June 7, 1942, in a small Bedouin village in the desert of Libya. His early life was humble, born into poverty, and raised by his peasant family. But Libya's political landscape was far from ordinary. Under the control of the Italian colonizers and later the British, Libya had always been a nation struggling for independence and stability. Gaddafi's political awakening came when he was a young man. He attended the Royal Military Academy in Benghazi, where he developed a sense of nationalism and a deep resentment towards the monarchy that ruled Libya under King Idris I. At the time, Libya was still recovering from the trauma of colonization and was rife with corruption, inequality, and an ever-growing gap between the ruling elite and the rest of the population. Gaddafi, unlike many of his peers, wasn't content to wait for change. Inspired by the political revolutions sweeping across the world, from Egypt's Nasser to Cuba's Fidel Castro, he began to plot his rise. His dream, a revolution that would rid Libya of its monarchy and establish a new kind of rule, a people's state, led by himself. On September 1, 1969, Gaddafi, at just 27 years old, orchestrated a bloodless military coup against the King Idris. The operation was swift, efficient, and largely unnoticed by the international community. By morning, King Idris I was deposed and Gaddafi had seized control of the country, turning Libya upside down. At first, Gaddafi presented himself as a man of the people. His goal was to create a third way between the extremes of capitalism and communism. He promised to redistribute Libya's immense wealth gained through oil production to the people. He envisioned a country based on Islamic socialism, where the oil wealth would benefit the masses, not the elites. His Green Book became the cornerstone of his political philosophy. It outlined his vision for a direct democracy in which Libyans would participate in local councils and decision-making processes. He even banned political parties, claiming they were unnecessary. The people are the state, he declared, positioning himself as both the symbolic and literal ruler. But what Gaddafi didn't tell the Libyan people was that his revolution was not about democracy. It was about power. Over time, his vision of a Libyan socialist paradise began to morph into the very dictatorship he had promised to overthrow. He created a totalitarian regime with himself as its center. Gaddafi's people's committees were affaised for his control, and he quickly began eliminating rivals. The liberation movements he had promised turned into violent purges. He cracked down on opposition, dissent, and anyone who might challenge his absolute authority. Critics vanished in the middle of the night, often never to be seen again. By the mid-70s, Gaddafi had become a pariah on the global stage, often at odds with Western powers. He was accused of supporting terrorist groups around the world. In 1986, US President Ronald Reagan branded him the mad dog of the Middle East, blaming him for sponsoring the bombing of a Berlin nightclub that killed American soldiers. The US retaliated by launching airstrikes on Tripoli, Gaddafi's compound, and even targeting his family. But Gaddafi was far from just a dictator of Libya. He saw himself as a leader of the Arab world, an advocate for Pan-African unity, and even a champion of the Third World. He made headlines by supporting revolutionary movements across the globe, from Ireland's IRA to Palestinian militias. He frequently funded and provided military support to groups opposing Western powers. In the early 2000s, however, Gaddafi sought to rebrand himself on the world stage. After years of international isolation, he began to court Western powers, especially Britain and the United States, offering to abandon Libya's nuclear ambitions in exchange for diplomatic recognition. He even paid reparations to the families of victims of the 1988 Lockerbie bombing, in which a Libyan agent was implicated. But despite these efforts, Gaddafi was still a deeply polarizing figure. His extravagant lifestyle, including his infamous tent diplomacy, where he hosted foreign dignitaries in a Bedouin-style tent, only furthered his image as a flamboyant and an often eccentric ruler. In February 2011, a wave of protests inspired by the Arab Spring reached Libya. Initially, Gaddafi responded with a promise of reform, but as the protests grew, he turned to violence. The situation quickly escalated into a civil war, with opposition forces, backed by NATO airstrikes, fighting against Gaddafi's loyalists. As rebel forces pushed towards Tripoli, Gaddafi's rule began to crumble. NATO forces provided air support for the rebels, and the international community was united in their resolve to end this reign. By August 2011, Gaddafi's stronghold in the capital had fallen. The once feared leader was now on the run, hiding in the desert, but not for long. On October 20th, 2011, Gaddafi's life came to a tragic and brutal end. After weeks of hiding in the city of Sirte, his hometown, Gaddafi was captured by rebel forces. His capture was nothing short of chaotic. The images were graphic. Gaddafi bloodied and disoriented, dragged through the streets by a mob of rebels. In the midst of the chaos, Gaddafi was killed, though the exact circumstances of his death remain unclear. Was it a summary execution, or was it the consequence of the violence that had gripped Libya? What is certain is that Muammar Gaddafi, the man who once ruled a nation with an iron fist, had been overthrown and executed by the very people he had oppressed for decades. Muammar Gaddafi's death marked the end of an era for Libya, but his legacy is deeply controversial. While some remember him as a revolutionary who transformed Libya and gave it a voice in the world, others see him as a dictator who squandered Libya's wealth, repressed his people, and left behind a country in ruins. After his death, Libya descended into civil war as militias fought for control of the country's resources. The country remains deeply divided, struggling to establish a unified government. For all his power and influence, Gaddafi's rule ended in chaos, much like his rise. The lessons of his fall remain an eerie reminder of the unpredictable nature of autocratic regimes. Thank you for watching. The story of Muammar Gaddafi is one of power, pride, and tragedy, and it serves as a cautionary tale for any leader who believes they are invincible. Let us know your thoughts about his legacy in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more captivating stories from history's most controversial figures. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for staying with us till the end. I'll see you on the next one.